a cognitive behavioral therapist that wants to come up with both a prevention plan and an intervention plan. That's three things. Cognitive behavioral therapist that will help you come up with a plan to prevent certain things, and the things that can't be prevented to intervene in the middle of those things. Strategies, not talk. Talk is great for NTs. I would say for the NT to go to a therapist by herself and to just talk the entire hour, that would be good for her. She drags your ass along, and now the three of you are sitting in there and she's hogs all the airtime. You're going to be off in no man's land at about the 5-minute mark. You won't even be there mentally. Yeah, you're going to feel like you're on trial. Let's go. Hey, Matt, let's me and you go and talk to this therapist about how much shit you've been doing wrong. You're going to feel like you're on the witness stand, or you're going to feel like you're on trial and being interrogated. I have a ton of structure. My structure is, you present me with the problem that you want to address, and I'm going to provide you with some suggestions. That's my structure in these groups. What's the problem? Give me the summary of the problem. I've said that to the NT Wives and the NT Wives group about 5,000 times. Give me the summary of the problem. I don't need a huge backstory. And then I'm going to spend an equal amount of time, if not more time, providing some suggestions for prevention and intervention. And I interrupt a lot because when clients are talking to me, almost every sentence, there's something to address. If there's a paragraph with 10 sentences in it, in my mind, that's 10 bullet points, each of which needs to be addressed before we move on, because as the person is talking, there's stepping stones in each sentence. And if I let them go on for too long, I interrupt a lot, especially in the NT Wives group. If we go too long, we've kind of skipped over a bunch of stuff. And we can't get down here to number 10 issue because she rattled off issues 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7. So I have to stop her quickly and say, okay, wait, before we move on, let's look at that one, because that one ties into the next one. And plus, guys on the autism spectrum, they thrive on structure and routine. They're not improvisational. They don't like to go in here willy-nilly and just, well, I don't know, let's just wing it. That's not their style.
Hey guys, this is Mark, and you've heard of the phrase, be here now? Be here now. Yeah. I'm going to be really paradoxical and suggest that you be somewhere else later. You've heard the phrase, live for the moment? No. Live for the future? You've heard of be present? No. I want you to be absent from the present. So what kind of knucklehead information is this? What is old news. What's going on now is often bad news. We don't want to focus on that. I want you to muster up your imagination skills, your visualization skills, your daydreaming skills, and focus on what you desire. Focus on a new and improved future, not on what's going on now. What's going on now sucks. So, yeah, be here now? No, I don't like that. I want you to be somewhere else later, not in the past. Don't go to the past. The past is done. There's nothing back there you want. I want you to be somewhere else later, as in the future. Focusing on visualizing, imagining, daydreaming on your preferred future, what you do want, what you do want. To tie this into the neurodiverse marriage, I want you to be focusing on, this is what I want us to be saying or doing at some point in the future. This is how I want us to be feeling about one another at some point in the future. This is what I want our thoughts to be about one another in the future. So not focusing on what's going on now, you're focusing on what you want in the future. So, I'm going to say it for the third time now. Be here now? Now, the hell with that. Live for the moment? No, I want you to live for the future. What is old news. Visualize, imagine, daydream on what you want to be, near future and distant future. Focus on that. All day. Here's an exercise now. Pay attention. I want you to get out a piece of paper or pull up a Word doc, and I want you to list as many things as you can regarding your preferred future. These are the things I want. These are going to be my preferred thoughts. These are going to be my preferred feelings. These are going to be my preferred behaviors. These are going to be my preferred outcomes. This is going to be my preferred marriage and all the dynamics involved in that thing. Okay? So do it. Get out a piece of paper, list the items that you want to see happen at some point. So I know this was kind of very paradoxical. It goes against the grain of what you hear in standard psychology. That's the way I live. That's the way I think. So consider it. Now, there are two exceptions to this new way of thinking and rather radical way of thinking, and that is when you're trying to connect with people that are important to you, you certainly want to be present mentally and emotionally. Also, if what you're doing in the present moment brings you satisfaction and joy, you certainly want to fully participate in that delicious moment. Outside of that, you want to be visualizing your preferred future. Now, let's make the distinction between living for the moment and living in the moment. While I am saying we don't want to live for the moment, instead we want to live for the future, we don't have the choice of whether or not to live in the moment. We only have this current moment to deal with, and that's fine. So, what to do with the living that goes on in the moment? I'm suggesting be available mentally and emotionally when you're connecting and communicating with others. If in the current moment you are finding joy and satisfaction, be sure to savor that. Outside of that, what you're going to do while you're living in the moment is you will be entertaining a vision of a new and improved way of life for you and your loved ones. Remember, what you think about the most becomes your reality. Now, let's expand this idea of visualizing an improved future to include your mood, your attitude, your behavior. Would you believe me if I told you that the main reason that you're so uncomfortable and ill at ease in this neurodiverse marriage is not so much because what your spouse is doing, but it's your reaction to your spouse that is the larger share of your distress? Why is that? It's because at your core, you are a very loving, caring, compassionate person. I don't care what you've been told by other people, and I'm talking to both spouses here, by the way. You are a loving, caring, compassionate person at your core. And so when you behave in ways that are out of alignment with your core, it feels very uncomfortable. Now, I'm saying that your spouse can say or do things that you download as very distressful. I'm not saying that they don't do anything. They do. But that's probably only 20 to 30% of your distress. The larger chunk of your distress is because you're out of alignment with you. You're behaving in ways that you don't like. You're becoming the kind of person that you don't want to be. And you're reacting in ways that are out of alignment with your true self. And you will find that when I behave reactionary, I'm out of alignment with me. And that's what's most uncomfortable for me. And so one of the best things you could be visualizing is playing the movie in your head of you saying and doing loving and kind things. And when you do that long enough, that type of attitude and behavior will be very obvious to others. And now you can imagine how greatly that will improve things. Hey guys, this is Mark, and I have a message to all the people out there with autism spectrum disorder, high functioning autism, Asperger's syndrome, whatever you're calling it nowadays, okay? So you have been told by some people, no doubt, that you don't understand love, that you don't have any empathy, that you are a narcissist, and I am going on record as telling you, you are none of that. You are love at your core. You do have empathy. You don't display it in the way neurotypicals like to see it, and you're not a narcissist, okay? Don't buy the bullshit. When neurotypicals tell you that you don't understand love, you have no empathy, and you're cruel, then you have a choice in that moment to believe their bullshit, or to realize I'm love at my core, I do have empathy, maybe I don't express it as often or as deeply as people want to see it. You don't need to get defensive about it, because if you mount a defense and try to convince the neurotypical that you do have empathy, you do have caring, that will just make your accuser more adamant about continuing to accuse and label and judge you. It's funny to me that the neurotypicals complain that you don't have any empathy, but as they're waging a war against you, they're displaying no empathy either. That's a two-way street. Moral to this story is you're love at your core, you do have empathy, you do have compassion, you can extend grace and mercy when needed. Don't buy the neurotypical bullshit.
What would be helpful would be to ask her, and we want to keep this fairly simple. You can say, I want to meet your needs, but I can't track multiple things at once. I can't think of 10 things that you need and then also juggle that with how I'm supposed to deliver it. So it would be helpful if we could start small and you give me one of what might be one of your top 3 needs that you want me to meet. So that's your first line. Here's your second line. So it would be helpful to me if we could play this game, and that is, if you were to videotape me doing what you want me to do for this one need that you just mentioned, what exactly would I see? So there's 2 lines, and I want to meet your needs. I'm a little confused as how to do that. It would be helpful to me if we pick one so I can begin practicing. And she picks one. Okay, well, I got many, but we'll start with this one. Okay, so if we video recorded me meeting that need in a way that you want, what would we see in that movie? Oh, well, I would see you walking in the door, giving me a hug, giving me a kiss, and then rubbing my shoulders as I wash the dishes. So now she's giving you some concrete visual things, and she'll have to think about it because she may not really know what she wants or needs either. She has a general sense, well, I need you to be more empathic. If I were to videotape me being empathic, what would I see exactly? Now she's got to figure it out and narrow it down and verbalize it. But if she can put it out there, now you know exactly what it looks like when Joe provides an honest attempt at meeting need number 1 that she's starting with as you're beginning your practice. Hey guys, this is Mark, and in this video I want to look at the dangers of blaming your spouse, and we're going to look at a path to understanding instead. In any committed relationship, conflicts and disagreements are inevitable, of course, we know. However, how couples navigate these challenges can impact the health and longevity of their marriage. So, one common pitfall that many couples, especially neurodiverse couples, fall into is a tendency to blame one another for problems. And this habit can be detrimental, leading to resentment and a breakdown of communication. So, let's try to understand the blame game. Blaming your spouse might provide a temporary sense of relief or a way to deflect responsibility, but it's ultimately going to harm both of you and the relationship as a whole. So when one partner feels unfairly accused or scapegoated, it's going to create a cycle of defensiveness. It's going to lead to further conflict. So instead of fostering understanding, blaming often breeds resentment and distance. Now, let's look at the psychology behind blame. Psychologically, blaming others is often a defense mechanism. It allows people to avoid confronting their own feelings of inadequacy and guilt. For example, if one partner feels overwhelmed by household responsibilities, she might lash out at her spouse for not contributing enough, rather than admitting her own struggles with time management or stress. Additionally, when blame becomes a regular occurrence, it can erode trust and intimacy. So when spouses start to perceive each other as adversaries rather than allies, they may struggle to communicate effectively and support one another, leading to emotional disconnection. Now, let's look at moving toward accountability. Instead of blaming, it's important to approach conflicts with a mindset of accountability. This means recognizing your own role in a situation and expressing feelings without assigning fault. For example, instead of saying, "You never help with chores," you might want to say instead, "I feel overwhelmed with the chores and I would appreciate your help." This approach emphasizes collaboration and understanding rather than confrontation. Now, let's look at some effective communication strategies. We'll start with I statements. Framing your feeling with I statements emphasizes personal experience rather than accusations. For example, "I feel hurt when my efforts aren't acknowledged" is way more constructive than "you never appreciate what I do." So use I statements. Next, we want to focus on solutions. Instead of fixating on who is to blame, direct conversations toward finding solutions. What can both partners do to address the issue at hand? Next, let's look at practicing active listening. With active listening, you ensure that both spouses feel heard and understood. You want to listen without interruption, validate each other's feelings, and this can foster a better understanding of each other's perspectives. One of my favorite things to preach about is paraphrase. You listen, In other words, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to look in your direction and nod as you're talking. I'm going to tactfully step in every once in a while and paraphrase back what you said so I can make sure that I got it. And then I'm going to validate by saying, I hear you, I understand you, I respect the fact that that's your opinion on the matter. Next, let's look at taking responsibility. Own up to your part in the conflict. Acknowledge your faults, and this will pave the way for a more open dialogue and reconciliation. So, taking responsibility for your contribution to the problem is actually the opposite of blaming. And lastly, we're going to talk about how to establish a safe space. You want to create an environment where both spouses can express themselves without fear of judgment or retaliation. In other words, when you speak to me, I'm not going to judge what you just said as it shouldn't have been that way, or it should have been a different way, or it would have been better if you would have said this. And also, I'm going to avoid retaliation. In other words, when you tell me what's truly on your mind and you're honest with me, I'm not going to hold it against you. So, blaming your spouse may seem like a quick way to address frustrations, but it's going to lead to deeper issues in the long run. Remember, it's not about placing blame, but about working together as a team. We're not shooting for perfection. We're simply shooting for more wins than losses. Blaming has never worked for you. It's always worked against you. Let me repeat. Blaming your spouse has never worked for you. It has always worked against you.
One of the problems that you ladies are having is he's got this very narrow range of interests. It's about the size of the little hole that you stick the thread in the sewing needle. And anything that falls outside of that, which is about 99% of what you want, he's not going to have a whole lot of vested interest in it because it's not even remotely in his special interest area. In fact, it's worse than that. It falls into the category that he has called boring, or too much work, or I don't think that needs to be done at all.
Hey, this is Mark Hutten. Would you like to schedule a one-on-one Zoom call? Okay, it's so simple. Just look under any of my videos in the description area. Click on this Calendly link. Now you see my calendar. Pick your month, your day, anytime that's available. Enter your name and email address. Then you'll get a follow-up email with the Zoom link on the day and time that you picked. And voila, we will talk.